we're in a state right now where people are sicker than they've ever been. We've shifted people's mindset to be so reliant on our medical doctors and on a drug that it's taking away the ownership of what they're supposed to be doing. I was working with some patients that were billionaires, and the advice that they were getting, I was like, wait, what did they tell you? My name is Dr. Jonathan Leary, and I'm the CEO and founder of Remedy Place, the world's first social wellness club.
I like the idea, replacing typical bars and restaurants with more healthy social activities.
For the 5 years in practice, the number one complaint I had, Dr. Leary, I feel incredible, my problems are gone, but all these lifestyle changes that you've given me are ruining my social life.
What do you think's going wrong? You mentioned that alcohol is a depressant, but there's been a rich culture of drinking over the years, right? But what has shifted?
Drinking alcohol is safer than being alone. The US Surgeon General last year released a study that showed that pure isolation could be as toxic as 6 alcoholic beverages per day.
What daily habits have had the most impact for you and your clients and what you've seen overall?
The foundational pillars of health are simple and free. And I really think that walking, well, if everyone just took 10,000 steps in a day, most of their problems would probably go away.
Welcome to That One Time with Adam Metwally, the podcast conversing the pillars of health, wealth, art, and wisdom for all your holistic hustlers out there. I'm here with Dr. Jonathan Leary. We're at the beautiful Music for a While studio.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. So, Dr. Leary, what is social self-care and how can it help to tackle the epidemic of sickness, loneliness, and depression, potentially all at once, based on your experiences in clinic and now building Remedy Place?
Yeah. I mean, very literally, it's taking care of ourselves with other people. I think we're in a state right now where people are sicker than they've ever been. We're still waiting on the 2024 statistics, but 2023, the top 8 conditions in the US reached the highest they've ever been. We have every medical breakthrough in pharmaceuticals and surgery, and that's saving lives, but it's not making people healthy. So there's change that's needed. And we're also lonelier than ever. We're more digitally connected, but the loneliness problem has reached an all-time high at a scary rate. So not only do we want to take care of each other, take care of ourselves, but it's also to do that with somebody else and build healthy relationships is so powerful. Because if we think of most of the ways that we interact, when you want to go socialize with friends or on a date, it's usually around drink. That drink is a depressant and a dissociative. So if you're trying to have a deeper connection, you're drinking a dissociative and depressant, it's not really setting you up for success. However, bonding over an ice bath or in a sauna or in an IV is enhancing your physiology, bringing out a better version of yourself and allowing not only for a deeper connection, but also a way to, it's almost like a gift to be able to share with somebody else to both prioritize something that's so important.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what do you think is going wrong that's got us to this point? Because, you mentioned that alcohol is a depressant, but there's been a rich culture of drinking over the years, right? And it wasn't correlated with these spikes in all of these negative outcomes around society. Maybe it wasn't, kind of tracked as well as it's tracked now. I don't know. There's plenty of potential reasons why, but what has shifted?
Listen, drinking alcohol is safer than being alone. The US, I'm not kidding. The US Surgeon General last year released a study that showed that pure isolation could be as toxic as 6 alcoholic beverages per day, which is a crazy statistic. So the act of drinking in culture and history is that it has been the way to unite us. But in the future, that doesn't have to be the only thing that unites us because it is still a toxin and it is a depressant associative, right? So there's so many other things to do to bring people together. But if it's the only way to bring people together, then that's a better solution.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So anyone listening, 5 drinks max.
I always say
5 drinks with friends.
I always say that on my talks and everyone's like, so drinking is allowed. So I have to now always say this doesn't mean go and drink, go still do something healthy together.
Whatever you do though, do not drink alone.
Yes.
That's a double whammy.
Even worse. Yeah. Yes.
So looking into the work you do, you've touched on quite a lot of diverse modalities. You've got chiropractic, traditional Chinese medicine, functional labs, sport physio, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
And you've put it into one holistic system.
Yeah.
to ideally prevent the initial goal was to prevent surgeries and resolve chronic pain, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that in some more detail. What's been the benefit and the potential drawbacks of approaching health in a more holistic sense than the problem solution sense that is in the Western medicine world right now?
Yeah, listen, don't come to me if you had an emergency.
Lost an arm.
Yeah, like that's where modern science and surgery and drugs have made huge advancements. Like they will save your life.
Yeah.
But they're never fixing the root cause.
Yeah.
It's like you're in pain till it's numb it. Pain only exists when things aren't biomechanically not moving. Numbing it is not going to fix the problem.
Yeah.
Oh, you have high blood pressure? Let's just thin the blood instead of worry about the plaque buildup. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you start thinking about treating the symptom is not treating the root cause. And the root cause is the thing that needs to be addressed because we're not looking for a Band-Aid. We want to fix it. And I think it's just interesting because pharmaceuticals have gotten so big that medical doctors studied medicine. That's what they went to school for, but they're not learning as much about the human body as far as like how to be healthy. So when you think about it, I think the intention was when pharmaceuticals started existing, they thought that this was fixing the problem. Then
Do you think they thought it was fixing the problem, or was it?
I don't know.
Just a profit motive.
I don't like to go down like the conspiracy. Like
follow the money.
But it's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And there's just things that for me, I've never talked bad about anything in the health and wellness profession because I think there's a time and place for most things. But I just do think that we've shifted people's mindset to be so reliant on our medical doctors and on a drug that it's taking away the ownership of what they're supposed to be doing. And there is no quick fix or magical pill that's going to solve all of your problems. And I think what has happened is people become dependent on external resources, and that's never going to solve the problem. And that's the thing is like you get one body, one mind. Why wouldn't you treat this like your number one asset?
Yeah.
And we've never been taught that. Like we were growing up, like I was never taught how to be healthy, how to take care of myself. And the fact that that's not a major part to our schooling is mind blowing because you can go to the top, some of the most successful people, some of the smartest people and they know nothing about it. And I think I was working with some patients that were billionaires and the advice that they were getting, I was like, wait, what did they tell you? And listen, I'm not the smartest person in any room, but I understand anatomy, physiology, biochemistry of the body in a very deep way. And when you know that, it's really not that complex. It's a puzzle, right? It's like, it's crazy in like rehab protocols, whether you're a chiropractor or a physical therapist, it's like, just like how if you're a medical doctor, it's like, here's the symptom, here's the drug. If you hurt your shoulder, right, and you just had surgery, or you didn't want to get surgery, the protocol shouldn't be the same for everyone. There's general protocols that should help, but it's kind of wild that people are just so programmed to think of like, this is this, so I must do this, instead of being like, all right, let me look at everything around that, and then what would I manipulate to fix it? And I think always looking at the body as a puzzle was an interesting thing because that's where I started adding in all of these different practices and all of these different technologies, and then how you combine them in different sequential order and timing, or how you layer them, or how you include some but don't include others, is pretty simple to fix most of our health problems.
Well, there's that saying, if you give a carpenter a problem, they're going to use a hammer and a nail for the solution for everything.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that the surgeon will want to do surgery and the GP will want to prescribe medicine.
Yeah.
So that holistic approach looks at everything as a system.
100%.
Yeah.
And the body's fascinating. The fact that like, I remember when I moved to LA, I was 22 and people were talking about the innate ability for the body to heal and energy. I thought everyone was batshit crazy because I'm so science backed. Like everything in my mind, I want to understand the science, but I was so naive and so ignorant to just think that science had to explain everything, because it's impossible to know everything, and science is ever changing. We find things are wrong all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I had a similar progression into the way I viewed the world. It's become more and more esoteric and holistic as the years have gone on. Similar thing, I studied engineering and I was like, if this is not proven by a double-blind placebo study, I don't want to hear it. And then some strange things would start happening and I go, huh. And then more strange things would happen. I go, huh. And then I started meditating. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
This is long before meditation started coming out with studies, and there were different there's now a lot of data around it, but I think I started really getting into it in probably like 2015, just on the start of like Headspace really taking off before a lot had caught up, and I couldn't explain half of it. Now I've just accepted the strange energies of the world, and I'm coming along for the ride.
And why not? Why not try? There's no harm in trying most of these things.
Well, that's the benefit, right?
It's like, see if it works.
The thing with a lot of medicine is there's so many side effects.
Yeah.
There's not that many side effects with a lot of the stuff, that you work with.
Yeah. Well, think it's like an ice bath, for example. Try doing a double-blind study with an ice bath. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But what's the harm for go do it, try it and see how you feel.
Yeah.
You don't need to wait for a research article to come out and say what all the benefits are. Put on a wearable,
give it a whirl
and see what happens.
Yeah.
Like see what happens with your wearable when you drink tonight, how that affects your sleep. And then the next night, don't drink and see how that affects your sleep.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is now with data and AI and all of these new techs, like those are the advancements I'm excited about because all of us are different. There's common themes and trends, but you can just start teaching yourself based on your data. And I think that's key for the success of the future.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ownership of your own health.
100%.
Yeah. And have won the studies.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about social self-care. It's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
We were chatting off air about the bane of the human experience right now and the loss of community and, the shifting of drinking into non-drinking cultures, but then this big loneliness epidemic.
Yeah.
I like the idea. It's an interesting idea, replacing typical bars and restaurants with more healthy social activities. And, younger generations, you've said in the past, are drinking less, looking for healthier ways to socialize, but there's not really much for them to grasp onto on a cultural level.
Yeah.
So how have you seen cultural shifts since, Remedy Place began?
Yeah, I think the reason why the social component to Remedy exists is because for the 5 years in practice, the number one complaint I had, and I documented it for those 5 years, was, Dr. Leary, I feel incredible. My problems are gone. But all these lifestyle changes that you've given me are ruining my social life. And now I can't have fun and I'm always isolated. And that's originally why I made it social. Because I was like, all right, I'm going to make a club that is not only beautiful and has hospitality standards, but I'm going to make it social. So we call them social substitutions, whether you have a date where you do have to work instead of a happy hour, where you host your birthday to a bachelorette party, now to even big scale events. But I think the biggest shift was in my practice when I was trying to get my patients to minimize the alcohol consumption. People started to think they have a problem. Even personally, when I was minimizing my alcohol, it was, oh, there must be a problem, especially in a new setting. Like it was strange for someone not to drink. Now it's normal. And I think that's probably the biggest shift because with the
making it okay. Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing. Now people are like, oh no, I get it. Like either they're envious of it and they're trying, or they just minimize. I think it's like last year, I think it was 67% of all Americans minimize their alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
I used to consult for a couple companies and, I was talking to one private members club and they were saying that globally their alcohol sales are down. Like I'm speaking with a lot of companies and just seeing these trends, but it's happening. And it's not just happening in LA and New York, it's happening around the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So what shifted?
I mean, the pandemic for sure was the silver lining there. It was a light switch that went on for the world that if you're not healthy, no one can miraculously fix you.
Yeah.
And being at a high risk is a scary thing, and seeing people die, seeing people really affected, I think that really drastically shifted the mindset. And I think that in combination with things like social media, I went to this conference, it had to be like 8 or 9 years ago. And at that time, it was like alternative medicine was 3 or 4% of the population that have tried alternative medicine. And they were saying that because of social media, there was a spike to like 6 or 7. And I can imagine that it's drastically higher now. But if you think of big pharma, they can do ads, billboards, commercials, all of these things. I think it should be illegal to market drugs, because you shouldn't be able to watch something and then self-diagnose and then tell yourself that, hey, I should be on that drug, it is illegal in other countries.
I'm pretty sure only America and to a lesser extent New Zealand allow drug marketing. Yeah, everywhere else it's illegal.
It's wild.
Yeah. And then you add lobbying in, that shit's crazy.
Yeah, but you think about it, it's like people, especially when you're sick, you're vulnerable. And when you see these things, people are marketed, and they're not that they're taken advantage of, but that's why they're gravitating towards that, where things like
the doctors get paid commissions on the drugs that they sell through the company.
It's wild. But like meditation, acupuncture, chiropractic, ice bath, saunas, there's never been a platform or marketing, because what alternative medicine doctor has tens of millions of dollars to be doing these marketing? They don't. So I think what happened in the past was people, unless they heard about it from a friend, like you're talking about how you meditate, I'm sure you told your friends
every day.
And then maybe that influenced them, but they didn't get marketed that. They heard it firsthand through you, that it made an impact. But then say you had tens of millions or however many followers online, if you said that and then people are receptive, whether it's the podcast, whether it's social media, whether it's their favorite celebrity, now you can say a word, you can share your personal story, and then people give it a shot. And I think that in combination with COVID skyrocketed everything, because awareness changed. And when the awareness changed and people tried it, and then people saw that it worked, then they were like, wait, why haven't I been doing this?
Well, let's dig into the specific pillars that Remedy Place offers. So I want to deep dive into each one and reasons why you've included them, because it seems like from the research I've done on you, you're very meticulous with what you choose to include, how you approach the elements of this project you're putting together. So off the top of my head, you've got acupuncture, chiropractic, IV drips, infrared sauna, lymphatic massage, sound baths, etc. Let's go through each one and talk about why you chose to include it.
Yeah.
So chiropractic.
Oh, wow. So movement cures pain. If you're in pain, something's not moving correctly. Scientifically proven, the fastest way to increase range of motion in a joint is through a high velocity, low amplitude thrust. And that's exactly what an adjustment is.
Okay.
I can look at you. We can do some range of motion testing. I can give you an adjustment. I will drastically change your range of motion. With that increased range of motion, that fixes imbalances. It lets out pressure. Like the actual cavitation is just carbon dioxide leaving the joint capsule. So it's opening up the joint space. Then you're rushing blood to the area. I never even knew what chiropractic was growing up. I went into a chiropractic program and I never even saw chiropractic before. I was just looking at what the scope was and then what I would be able to do with that scope. And in California, a chiropractor can treat and diagnose anything. They just can't prescribe meds or puncture the skin. So I was like, great. I know I want to create Remedy. I need to be able to increase my scope and my capabilities. And then while treating people, I actually started to see, wow, like this actually works. And then I started being exposed to, like physio, everything from active release to things like Graston, which is fascia manipulation. Then I was exposed to acupuncture and cupping. And you're like, wait, I was always told these things didn't work or they were fake. And I'm like, whoa. And then I was introduced to functional medicine. And then functional medicine, I'm like, I always get blood work every year through my doctor, my primary care. Like, I'm always fine. They always say, you're great, you're in shape, you're healthy, you're young. And then when I did my first functional medicine, I was like, wow, there's a lot of things that I never even thought about looking at. And then also there's a lot of imbalances that are normal that aren't, that just because they're
actually correct.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm like, wait, why aren't we looking into this? And then you later find out the reason why people aren't looking into it is because insurance only covers diagnostic blood work. If you're sick or not sick. You and me, it's less of a worry if I'm sick or not sick. I want to know, how healthy am I today and how do I become healthier? Or there are things that might evolve into something that I should be addressing earlier.
Yeah.
And I think what's really sad is we've gotten so sick in the world that you hear about the word prevention. prevention is everywhere.
Yeah.
Our goal of health right now is just to be preventing getting sick. That's one half to the equation. But when I was working with my athletes, I had to get optimal health so that they could perform. And yes, because of the global issue of people being sick, we need to get them to not sick first. But then there's this whole other half that needs to be really like shifting the awareness around that. Hey, the healthier you are, the more successful you're going to be in every vertical of your life. Yeah. This isn't just work and athletic performance. This is happiness. This is how you connect with people, how you show up. I mean, it's kind of wild. And it's like functional medicine is your blueprint to get the instruction manual to your body. And then you need a naturopathic doctor or doctor that has studied functional medicine to then not just dissect the blood work, but then to teach you what are the lifestyle changes that you need to implement. And that takes a long time.
Yeah, it's not easy.
When I would do my patient's blood work, sometimes, you're looking through 50 pages and it's not, hey, let me just go look at my textbook to see what a deficiency means. But you have to look at how one imbalance can cause a thyroid problem or a hormone problem, or, like the one deficiency might be causing your major symptom. And I think when you start thinking of how the biochemistry of the body and how everything is connected, it would take me like 8 or 10 hours to dissect all of the blood work to feel like, what am I missing here as this gigantic puzzle of like the chain of events that could happen. And I started with surgery prevention and chronic pain rehabilitation. And then because I did functional medicine to aid in that, my patients would be like, my autoimmune condition isn't flaring up anymore. Oh, my depression's gone. Oh, my gastrointestinal problem is gone. Like, so then I started getting all these referrals for gut health, for autoimmune conditions. And I'm like, how did I start in this sports medicine side, focusing on surgery prevention and chronic pain rehabilitation? Now I'm treating gut health. And then it's a rabbit hole. Like we were saying before, like everyone's gut in America is a mess. So then it's like, you start seeing all these common themes and then how it has to be addressed. Yeah. Sorry, I just went on for
a while
great.
On that. No, it's great. It's a very important stuff. So, let's touch on the IV drips. So run me through what brought you in, why you brought that into the modalities that you've got at Remedy Place.
Yeah, super impactful. Listen, all supplements in America are loosely regulated and most of them are junk. Most of them stress your liver and kidneys, and then you end up just having expensive urine. You are legitimately mostly flushing away most of the vitamins. And I would see it over and over again with my patients. Like, I've been taking this vitamin for 5 years now and they're deficient in it. And I would show them, I'm like, that synthetic compound your body never recognized. Where something like a vitamin IV, you are going right directly into the bloodstream. You're getting 100% of the nutrients. And then that with hydration, because most people are just dehydrated. They're drinking diuretics all day and they wonder why they're not going to the bathroom. They wonder why they have a headache. They wonder why they're stiff and tight. And I'm like, hey, how much water do you drink? Oh, I don't drink water. I have a glass a day. I'm like, that's problem number one. Like sometimes it's so simple and they're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. They're like, oh, every time I'm on a plane, I'm so stiff and I don't go to the bathroom. I'm like, well, every 3 hours in the air, you lose 1.5 liters of water and you're drinking wine and coffee on the plane, which are diuretics. So of course you're stiff and you don't go to the bathroom and you have a headache. But once again, it's just sometimes these little gentle things, but IVs are great to not only hydrate, but also just to get the nutrients that you need. And by doing the blood test and knowing exactly what you need and then putting that in, you get the results faster, and there are some really cool companies now that, like, we work with one supplement company that makes all the supplements in Switzerland. In Switzerland, they follow different regulation protocol. It's the same as pharmaceutical drugs. So the way that they're tested, the way that they're actually like labeled, completely different. And with this company, every quarter you can retest the blood work to show that it's absorbing. So that's also important.
Interesting.
So then they have the biggest data pool, I believe, of showing the clinical evidence of the absorption rate. And then they make you a new series of vitamins every single quarter.
Interesting.
So I actually am really fond of them. And it's not just, like everyone's making these pouches of like 10 vitamins in there and it's individualized to you, but they're just throwing a bunch of vitamins in there. And this is probably the most unique one that I've seen. So we recommend those. And then IVs, I think there's and vitamin injections. Like everyone's getting sick in the city this time of the year. Like if you go get a vitamin D shot and a glutathione shot every day, I mean, not every day, one day a week, that is so impactful. But once again, it's like, all right, now that I know that that works, I don't want to get sick. I'm going to continue my health routine, but I'm also going to be extra safe.
Yeah.
Or if I'm going to travel a lot, I'm always going to be exposed to bacteria and viruses. It's not to eliminate and wear a mask. It's about strengthening my defense mechanism so that the stronger my immune system is, the more it's going to be able to fight anything it becomes encountered with.
Yeah, definitely. There's an interesting supplement stack I've been using lately that's been super helpful for not getting sick as well on the vitamin D train was liposomal vitamin C.
Love it.
Lysine.
Okay.
And then oil of oregano with like a carrier oil under the tongue.
So I do oregano oil, colloidal silver and zinc.
Yeah.
That's my droppers whenever I feel something coming on. But I don't allow myself to get sick. And I tell myself, I don't even allow myself to say, my team thinks it's so funny. Like if I'm actually sick, I'm like, I'm not sick. I feel great. And it actually works. And I'm telling you, like, and I think that's also interesting because it's mindset. And I think I do that with everything. Like, even though people say stress is such a bad thing, I don't think stress is always bad. I think moderate stress is actually good. And we can talk about that later if you want. But I always say, I'm like, I don't use the word stress. I say resistance. And I know that resistance in the gym makes me strong. Resistance in life makes me strong. And I think, once again, it's just like reprogramming the brain. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's the same thing with being sick. It's like
the mind is powerful.
I'm never getting sick.
You are telling yourself. So one of my friends used to say, words are spells, right? You know, you keep telling yourself the same thing over and over again, it's going to eventually become your reality.
Yeah.
And I think of that red car analogy of the moment you buy a red car, you've never seen a red car on the street, but then you begin to see a red car because your brain is now siphoning that information into your list of important things that you need to consider. Yeah. So if you keep saying you're sick every day, it's going to look for everything that's making you sick, and you're going to probably get sicker and sicker and sicker.
Well, think about it. How many people in your life do you know that are like, they just know they're lucky and they say, I'm so lucky, and everyone thinks they're lucky and they continue to be lucky? Or the people in the world that are victims to everything and they're like, nothing works out. Like those things, if you're telling yourself every day, it happens.
Yeah.
That's why it's so careful. It's important to be careful with your words.
We are lucky. We are
lucky.
Loved.
Yeah.
we are healthy.
Yeah, there we go. That's key. It's part of, I do that daily. Positive affirmations are powerful. There's a reason.
Yeah. I just did Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny in December.
Wow. How was it?
It was crazy. That man is unbelievable at getting people into high energy states like I've never experienced. A couple of points in time where I've been in a mental state where I've never experienced that before, and I've seen and done some shit in my time. So it was really good. And he's big on, telling yourself these affirmations, and writing them down and saying them over and over again and saying them with energy and just locking them into your body, because you can say a word, but without an emotional state associated with the word, it doesn't connect. The only time you learn a lesson is when you've told something and then some pain or some pleasure has associated with that thing that you've been told, so it locks into your brain.
Well, that's why stress, anxiety, and depression can be good, because it's really interesting when you think of deep memories, it's always around heightened states of emotion.
That's right. Yeah.
Because it's the same part of the brain.
Well, how do you create heightened states of emotion without them becoming chronic problems that destroy you?
I think it's learning how to feel all emotions and then how to react to them. When I moved to LA and I started changing my life, I was like, oh, in order to be, you have to be positive, which always means happy and excited. And then I started to realize that I was suppressing all other emotions, which isn't healthy. And I think it's important to feel sadness and anger or any emotion, but you need to let it pass. And I think the problem with our modern therapy is that people are talking about their problems over and over and over again. And it's called rumination. You're making the problem worse. That's not a good idea. If someone hurts you, feel it, learn how to respond to it, but then you have to move on from it because it happened already.
Yeah.
But going and sitting and talking about it over and over again is actually imprinting it in your brain deeper and deeper and deeper.
And sometimes it's not even the reality, it's the story you've told yourself, and then you're imprinting this story you've told yourself, and the more you say it to yourself, the more you think it is the actual reality of what happened, and it potentially wasn't even.
100%. I mean, that's
probably it wasn't even.
Yeah,
more than likely.
More than not, though. You know, it's crazy how our perception on things can be, especially as we're sicker and sicker, and as your mental health or your health declines, how you perceive things is less and less of a reality. And that's my worry with humanity right now is if we don't fix this major health issue, people are going to lose touch of perception. And that's where more psychological disorders really evolve.
Well, that's, I think, where the modern world with like the internet and social media is, you've hit the nail on the head. We are losing touch with reality through these phones. Reality is becoming something else. Reality is becoming this, which is some form of reality.
Yeah.
But our brains and our bodies are not wired to have that reality be a useful tool for our survival.
Well, it's also too, like, it's the addiction part to it, you know, like that short-term dopamine spike over and over, like we're becoming so numb that it's harder to have deep feelings or deep connections or to stay engaged. I mean, we know this with relationships now, like we're destroying ourselves with these things. But now that awareness is shifting, I hope one day being on your phone isn't cool. And, you know, like future generations, it's like, oh, they did technology, you know, like it's going to be weird because I don't know how that happens, right? With advancements in AI, because it's going to become a major part of our life, but there's going to have to be some shift there or we're in trouble.
Yeah, either I think it's going to go to both ends of the extreme. So you are like so locked in and online for some part, but then you are so offline for other parts.
Yeah. Or AI finds a way for us to be technologically advanced and savvy while not having to be connected to it.
Or AI finds that we're just a stain on its overall goal, and
that's a big worry.
That is a big worry.
And I think I've been to some of these conferences recently, and even one Brian Johnson hosted an event at Remedy in LA.
Yeah, nice.
And his whole talk was just about advancements in AI in the future. And I didn't say it because I didn't want to be like the Debbie Downer of the group, but based on what he was saying, I was just like, if we need to input all of our beliefs in order to like direct what AI is smarter than us. And if everyone in the world is inputting what their thoughts are, it's going to realize that the average American or individual's thoughts are not safe. Because you think about the amount of people that are thinking logically, it's becoming less and less. So it is kind of scary that it would make sense that we would be a threat, because we just said the threat that we're putting on ourselves through pharmaceuticals, through environmental things, the digital connection. Like we're technically doing that to ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot changing and none of us know where it's going to go. I mean, look, I like to think of things in an ideally optimistic lens. Like, have you read a book called The Beginning of Infinity by David Deutsch?
I haven't.
It's a really interesting book that basically says that there's moments in time where there is a point of inflection that something comes out of a box and goes exponential.
Yeah.
And we are terrible at understanding and determining how these things will play out as humans. We're terrible at it, but more often than not, it ends up positive. And if you look at the past bits of human history, there have been moments in time where this has happened, where it's just been the genie's been out of the box, and the result has always been net benefit. There has been a net benefit for society, and an example of, because we don't see and understand what's going to follow.
Yeah.
An example of it was in this book that I always come back to, was he was talking about, and I'm going to completely butcher this and paraphrase it, but the gist will be there. So He was talking about these color TVs that came out very early on in the whole TV technology. Okay. And they were expensive TVs that had a rare earth mineral that was used for the color red. And it shot that rare earth at the screen, and that's how they got the color red.
Okay.
Now, there was a lot of articles of people saying these are only for like the rich, and if we continue down this trajectory, we're going to run out of these rare earths, and it's all going to be ruined, and blah, 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 get rid of the TVs. But then what ended up happening, the technology shifted, they stopped using the rare earths, and it completely democratized the price of TVs, and every single person, even the poorest of the poor, have a TV now.
Yeah.
That's the point. The point is, we don't know what's going to follow, but every problem that we have is a problem based on a lack of knowledge, not a lack of ability, unless it's outside of the laws of physics.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. So the whole book's premise is, don't be so afraid. We will figure it out. We're pretty clever. We've figured it out before. All it takes is one shift that opens the bottle that changes everything.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And we go to say, let's say the plastics thing, like plastic could be a good example. Like people are looking at the plastic problem, which is a problem for sure, as a linear problem, right? Every day we get closer to the apocalypse of plastic everywhere, right? Yet someone could create, there's a bacteria that they're starting to create that eats the plastic. That bacteria eats all the plastic. It's over. It's done. Solved. Not a problem anymore. So anyway, the point I'm making, and I completely digress, is I think it's going to be okay as long as we give people a chance to solve problems and to be optimistic about the ability for human ingenuity to solve problems. And maybe the AI solutions that we're having will give us a better chance to solve the harder problems, because a lot of our lower level problems are solved.
Yeah, listen, I think advancements in AI are going to do numbers for health. I mean, I think, like I said it before, like it's just about education, and it's about someone to teach you about your body. Like even my mom, I got her a laptop for Christmas and I set it up with ChatGPT, and I was like, every day, Mom, you're going to ask it, because she's having trouble with her memory. And I'm like, you're going to do 20 minutes every day of being tested on things and practices that will teach you about your memory.
How's that going?
Amazing. And
really?
She's loving it. She's like, it's almost like having a therapist, but in a cool new way, but it's always different. It's always unique. And I'm like, see, that's amazing. And then she lost her sense of smell during COVID. And I've tried everything to figure it out, but every single day there's a 10-minute practice of different things that she can be doing or trying with herbs and like olfactory things to start training her body how to smell again. And this is new.
Is it helping?
I haven't asked her in the past couple of weeks, but it's only been, a month and a half.
Okay.
But even just having someone there, like I can't do that for my mom every single day. And also she lives in Rhode Island in this small little town. She doesn't have access to someone amazing, but I'm like, I could see how from like therapy in the future or someone to read your functional medicine, like maybe I don't have to sit there for 8 to 10 hours, because instantly once it has the database, it knows all the biochemical reactions. So instantly it told me something and saved me 8 hours without a mistake or without me missing something.
Yeah.
And that's powerful.
So that's an interesting one, because I just bought the ChatGPT Pro. It's like the $200 a month thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Well, I don't like, it's not something that's in the budget right now. Like just moving back to New York and still finding my feet, et cetera, et cetera. But I was like, maybe I'm thinking about this completely wrong. And maybe that extra compute could make all the other problems be solved a lot easier. So I tested the theory with your research, actually, the research for you. I did my manual process. Okay. And then I did the deep research, $200 a month. Just gave it some basic stuff, like some of the questions and said, figure it out. And it took 5-10 minutes for that to come together. I didn't use them because I wanted to just A/B test it. But I would argue that those questions were better than the questions that I came through using AI still, supporting AI tools. They were better than the hour and a half long process that I had.
100%.
Which is interesting.
You know what I think, what I love about it is I'll go do all the work and then I'll have it review it and tell me what is wrong with what I just wrote. You know, if it's like something that I'm trying to problem solve, or I'm thinking through a new business vertical, I will write out the whole business plan and be like, look at this, you know, tell me, like, depending on what the specialty would be in. And I want you to give me the most honest feedback, where the weak points are, where the strengths are, and exactly what you would do to make it stronger.
Yeah.
And I'm using it as a tool to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sitting there saying, write a book for me. No, like, I think there's certain things that could be done where, what if I wrote a 100-page book and I'm like, what's wrong with this? And how can I make it more captivating and interesting?
Yeah.
You know, and not even having it rewrite it, but just telling me feedback on each section to be like, what's wrong with this? Or how do you perceive this?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I feel like I'm getting so many lessons and things that I know nothing about on a constant basis because I have someone to help.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's all this fear of saying AI is going to take jobs and blah, blah, blah. I'm of the opinion that AI is not going to steal your job. Someone supercharged with AI will steal your job.
Correct.
Someone who can do your job plus 10 other people's jobs in the same time is going to take your job. And they're going to get paid very well for that.
Yeah.
So the only solution is figure this shit out.
I think there's so many people so scared about it. Instead of just using it as a tool, they're just bashing it. And I'm like, guys, this is inevitable.
Yeah.
Stop fighting it. Like, if I had more time, I would be doing as much research in AI to learn as many different softwares and technologies and uses. I would be designating every moment of my life to that, because I do think the more you can understand it, it's the future and it's undeniable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we digress anyway. I'd love to jump back into the health and wellness side of things. It's very important. It is going to be an integral part of human health down the line, and you know, getting better outcomes on taking in a bunch of data, human data, and making alerts that might be relevant for somebody is going to be a massive part of this.
Huge.
But I'd love to go back into some more of the modalities that you've got. So let's talk about infrared sauna.
Yeah. So I'll do hot and cold at the same time. You know, whether it's infrared, traditional, ice
your feet in the bucket, and the rest of your body.
Listen, I think we go to the gym to use resistance to strengthen our musculoskeletal system, right? The muscles in our body. But we also need to train every system in our body. And this is where, you know, starting with hot and cold, we call it adaptation training. Mm-hmm. Learning how to respond and adapt and be more resilient in extreme hot and extreme cold is extremely powerful because it's training our thermoregulators.
Well, that's what we used to have to do as humans, you know, before we had temperature control.
Yeah. No, 100%. And the less that we do that, there's more and more problems. But what's interesting is, especially with something like an ice bath, no one wants to get in cold water. But I think in a time and a place where people feel like they don't control their mind or their body or their thoughts, an ice bath is a really amazing practice to teach yourself that you're in control. And by doing something hard and accomplishing something hard is extremely powerful, especially when done on a regular basis. Outside of sleeping better, leaning out and looking better, you know, decreasing pain, enhancing performance. Those are all amazing. But for me, an ice bath is really about the mental benefit, but also the 6 minutes that I spend in my ice bath every day, or every day that I can. That's my most present moment of the day. Yeah. And when I'm most present, because you're focusing your breath, you're in that moment, that's where your creativity comes. That's where my new ideas come. Like, I either need to be at max exertion in a workout or a run, or in my ice bath, or sleep.
The sauna's good too.
And the sauna too.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part. The sauna is actually, I've always been really good with heat. The cold took me a while to get comfortable in.
I'm the complete opposite.
Yeah. So I feel like it takes a very long time for me to get to a point where to like have that click in my head creatively. And I usually always do my saunas with people versus by myself. So then I'm always more interactive, so I don't have all my alone time in there.
Yeah.
And the science has shown, like with ice baths and saunas, you know, it's incredible on how something so simple can make such an impact.
Yeah.
And I do think, especially with an ice bath, there's nothing that you can do in 6 minutes that will shift you more mentally, emotionally, or physically in 6 minutes naturally.
Yeah.
And then you've seen all the studies on saunas, right? Like every day you do sauna, like per week, it decreases your risk.
all-cause mortality or some crazy number. Or like not all-cause mortality, like cardiovascular death. Yeah. Wild.
That's crazy. Go spend 30 minutes and your day in a sauna and you can cut your risk it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's not a magical drug. It's not a magical, like quick fix. It's just a daily practice that should be part of your routine. Just like you brush your teeth and you shower. That's where I think things like saunas and cold plunges are so impactful and simple.
Back in Australia, I got myself a chest freezer and I lined it and I put a little temperature probe in and paid a friend of mine, like an electrician friend, to put something together for me. And there was before I started, wanting to move overseas, there was a moment in time where I was dealing with some really challenging stuff in the previous career that I was in, which was festivals and events, very, very high stress business.
Yeah.
And I was just going through some really, really tough periods with that work. And, every phone call was a battle and everything, those times where you just fucking go on a war every moment of every day. So I made a commitment to myself and I said, all right, every morning I am going to go into this ice bath for 3 minutes every single morning. So I remember it vividly. I would wake up in the morning, I would stare at the ceiling and go, oh, fuck. And I would have to just get myself out of bed and force myself into that cold plunge. And I'm thinking to myself, this fucking sucks. I hate this. Why did I commit to this? But I couldn't not do it because I committed to it and I had to do it. And then at the end of those 3 minutes, I would get out and be like, well, that was the worst thing I'm going to have to deal with all day. And everything else is a little bit easier.
You never get out and say, I wish I didn't do that.
Yeah.
Right. And also that practice of knowing that you don't want to do it and then getting your ass up and doing it.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do with most things in life. So imprinting that in your head, even just the act before going in could be as impactful as being in that ice bath.
100%. Just quickly though, I love doing this podcast. If it's positively impacted you in some way and you would like to support us, please subscribe. By subscribing, it allows us to build a much bigger base of listeners, which results in better guests, better production, and a better show overall. Alternatively, please take a look at the affiliate links of the products that I use and love in the comments below and consider purchasing using those links. They'll give you a discount and they'll also provide the podcast a small kickback. These are two very easy ways for you to support us as we continue to grow the podcast that we absolutely love doing. Thank you for your support. And now back to the episode. 100%. Well, I'd like to talk about daily habits. So if, we're probably pretty far on the edge of the spectrum when it comes to this. It's a part of our personality at this point.
Yeah.
But someone who's probably beginning, what would you say as the biggest potential ROI for somebody who's feeling drained, mentally isolated, or uncertain when it comes to wellness? What daily habits have had the most impact for you and your clients and what you've seen overall?
I think the most underrated thing that people...
that they can do without needing like a specific place.
Yeah. Whenever I give advice, I always try to start with the bare minimum because the foundational pillars of health are simple and free, and I really think that walking, people take that it is so impactful. If everyone just took 10,000 steps in a day, most of their problems would probably go away. And the one thing that I think is fascinating that I see, especially with gastrointestinal problems, most people, when I compare to LA and New York, patient-wise and then personally, and then just seeing now between living in both, LA, everyone's so conscious of nutrition and supplements and their health. And I see more gut issues and gastrointestinal problems in LA than I see here. And in New York, I see a lot more drinking, a lot more bread, a lot more pro-inflammatory foods, still gut issues, but not as bad. And I think what I'm noticing is In LA, no one walks. In New York, everyone walks. And the power and the impact of walking to and from every meal or before and after every meal, that alone, no matter what your diet is, it will play a major role, not in your digestion, but also in your weight control and inflammation and bloating. And that makes sense, right? Well, food is sitting in your stomach and your intestines. If you just go eat and then sit in the car or eat and then sit on the couch, how is that going to move through you?
No, it's not.
Where if you walk, I mean, we know through blood sugar, like controlling blood sugar before and after, just walking plays a major role. And I think what's interesting is I think New York, although people think isn't a healthy city, I think New York is healthier than LA because people walk more, life's more spontaneous, and there's a lot more human interaction.
We're just degenerates.
No, but I also think there's a level of stress.
For only 5 drinks, though.
Yeah. Oh God. No, but there's a level of stress that's good.
Yeah.
And there's a level of, there's something special energetically in the city because we're all in the same rat race, right? But that also does, like, we also know the studies around the people around you, and like even having one bad person in the office, how that brings everyone down, but also having a group of people that help bring you up. Like, you can't have the access and the interaction we have in New York City anywhere else.
Well, yeah, it's just millions of people clamoring on top of each other.
Yeah.
And pretty much I feel like unless you were born here, and there's not that many people that are like New York natives that have been here from start to finish. But if you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
You're here to do something. You're here because you want something.
Yeah.
And you bring them all together and you make a bunch of friends.
Powerful.
It's pretty powerful. It's great. That's what drew it to me. Like, I was in a small city, 200,000 people. I was kind of, I focused on events and hospitality and nightlife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I did okay. And I, made some good money, lived above the average, but nothing crazy. Like, there was a ceiling for one. And also I was isolated because I was the target or the inspiration. I didn't have any peers that I could bounce off and grow with.
Yeah.
And that just capped me very quickly. I probably hit my peak in that world, in that city, 25, only a few years in. Come here, complete nobody, got nothing to add to anything to begin with. But I'm so fired up, and I'm learning every moment of every day is an interaction where I learn so much, because you're just around a bunch of people that just get it and want to grow and want to bounce those ideas off one another. And that's where the good shit comes from, I think. Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be another one of my recommendations is be around people that inspire and motivate you.
Yeah.
Find any way. Like, I think, like things like if you're younger, being an intern now and if everyone's like, I don't want to do those jobs, I don't want to work that hard. It's not about even the job or the pay. It's about being able to be in that room with that individual, because what you're going to learn and maybe how you're going to be pushed, or just it's going to expand your development drastically.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I would say just a sleep cycle, like going to bed at the same time. Don't eat before bed, sleep in a cold room, turn off the distractions.
Yeah.
Sleep is so important.
Yeah.
So I think finding ways to be around more human connection that empowers you. I think walking, and I think getting a healthy sleep routine, those things will change your life.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, you were treating people for one thing, and then you fix a bunch of basics, and then systemically all these other problems get solved.
Yeah. I mean, I was this young kid from Rhode Island with no culture, no experience. And then I started working with some of the most successful people around the world. And I'm like, I'm getting paid to treat you, but I'm also in the room with you. And most people couldn't even pay to be in the same room with you or to have you. And like, remember when you're doing someone's rehab, you're with them for a long time, and they're as inquisitive as I am. And I think I owe so much of my development, and even Remedy, like even the opportunity for Remedy to become like existing, that wasn't normal for me to think about, oh, how can I get $1 million to open up my first club? That was so outlandish, $1 million. But being in the room and people were like, oh, you just make a deck. And I'm like, what's a deck? And it's like, oh, you make a presentation to raise money. And I'm like, wait, you just raise money? People give you money? Like, but it wasn't that anyone ever gave me anything, but I helped a lot of people. And I think in response, they taught me a lot of things.
Yeah.
Oh, you should meet so-and-so because they're amazing. Or, oh my God, we see how hard you work and we hear you talk about remedy all the time. We want to invest in you. And I'm like, you do? Like, you know, but I think that's where it is. It's like add value to people's life and be a good person and care. And I think the world's funny, right? It's like everything, it all works together, right? Yeah. And energetically, whatever you put out, you get.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So I'd love to touch on this. So you've worked around and with like effectively elite operators, elite individuals who execute on a world-class level at scale. What are some commonalities between all of them that you've seen?
Yeah, perseverance. I mean, I think it's that they don't run away from things that are hard. It's that they run straight at them and they figure it out. I also think the common theme around the same type of people is the more that you're put in those circumstances, the more numb you become, that you feel around certain emotions. And like I was saying before, I think when you reach a certain level of success or fame or any of whatever you consider successful, you become not only more and more unrelatable because people won't get it, which then you have to be okay with being misunderstood. Mm-hmm. But I also think that the common theme around people that have to do so much and help so many, or they're a leader to so many people. Like if you punched me in the face and I had a meeting in 1 minute, I would have to go into that meeting and be perfectly fine and show up, and I think when you get punched in the face a lot and you can't respond back or like you can't be reactive, the worry with that is we lose sense of emotions. And I think for me, like a personal practice that I have is, I have to do a lot of work to make sure that I can still feel all emotions, because when I'm not in the workplace, I still need to be able to feel the emotions, because then if not, there's some disconnection somewhere in my body.
Yeah. What's an example of that?
I think sadness, right? I think I think even as a personal story, right? Like me, I've never been a CEO. I've never been a leader. In my practice, it was a one-man team. And now we have almost 100 or more than 100 employees. And some days I have 16 hours of meetings. Like I don't have time to feel sad. I don't have time to feel angry. I just have to go and do. And I think by the end, like it's almost like a year cycle. Like I'm analyzing it to make sure, but then I realize I'm like, oh, I'm watching this really sad movie or something like that should make me teary-eyed doesn't. And I'm like, oh, like I'm not in tune with my emotions right now. And then I have to go figure that out.
So how have you then figured it out?
Oh, wow. This is this guy, Dr. John Amaral. And I actually don't publicly talk about this much. And even I don't say a lot to my friends or like people that I know, because it's such a strange thing. Sure. But he does this amazing energy work. And, at Remedy Place, I've been exposed to so many, Reiki healers. He's not a Reiki healer. Reiki, I think it's an amazing thing, not to discredit it, but it's like, I feel like relaxing and meditative. He does this guy that when I first met him, a friend, I'll tell you a short version of the story. He did this event for my friend. He was her healer. She did this thing in LA for 16 people. And he started off with a presentation on energy, and it was all on like quantum physics and NASA studies. And I'm like, wow, like this is the best explanation of energy. Like me hearing it from both sides, understanding the science, but I was like, wow, like in layman's terms, this is probably the best explanation that I've ever heard.
So is this on YouTube by any chance?
Well, he went on Gwyneth Paltrow's
Goop? Is it Whoop?
Yeah. And honestly, it got so much backlash that it was the most crazy thing, the most crazy episode out of the whole season.
What's his name again?
Dr. John Amaral. And if you look at it and you watch that episode, it's a fraction of what it actually looks like. But if I sat and watched that on TV, or if I sat and watched everyone in that room and I didn't experience it, I would have actually thought that it was crazy. But it ended up being the exact opposite. And it was another example of me being naive and ignorant and not being open. And it completely shifted my perspective on energy. And and it's hard for me to explain what he exactly does, but you know, I think your body gives off a certain diameter of heat, and you know, down to every cell, like we are energy. And how I know that is because every cell is measured in joules. Joules is heat, heat is energy. So we are dense energy. That's what we are. But then we also give off a certain amount of heat. And there's something where like, if you and me are sitting within a certain distance and our heat is interacting, there is a form of communication that isn't verbal.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And like,
I've never heard of it in that way. That makes sense.
It makes so much sense. Like when you have a gut feeling and we're not talking, is it just that our heat is interacting and that's what we're feeling? I'm telling you, the more that I have like studied and researched and thought about this and about the thought of like a thought and a word and how humans come together, it shifted my perspective. And like, I went from wanting to explore things like ayahuasca because I was volunteering in Peru for 2 weeks for an X amount of years. And the doctors that I worked with there all did it, to never needing to do it. Not that I'm against it, but it's,
the calling's not there.
I just don't have it.
Yeah.
And this first experience showed me enough, not only to one, feel my emotions again, and then I still try to do it on an annual basis with him. I actually just emailed him last week to book my next session, but also it just shifted my perspective on how powerful we are. And like, we are just a host, like our body's just a host to this energy.
So what does he do?
So basically, I don't want to butcher it. So if you're listening, John, hopefully I'm giving you.
Have to get him on the podcast. Yeah. It sounds like an interesting episode.
He's basically manipulating the heat around your body, which sounds like, how could that be possible? But I've watched firsthand with the human body on a table, and his hand is underneath the table, and where his hand is with the person not seeing it, that's the area of the body that's moving. And it's crazy that he's not touching anybody. And basically he's just saying like, when there's blockages in the body, we're not energetically connected, which would make sense, right? Like everything's an energetic signal, right? And when there's blockages, the signal is disconnected. So he's basically finding these disconnections through the energetic fields and then restoring them, which sounds crazy.
I did a podcast with a lady her name's Sarah Jane Perry.
Okay.
And she has this thing that she's put together called spinal energetics.
Yeah.
And it's no touch, next to no touch, and like complete just convulsions of people, like some crazy shit.
So
it's might probably be a similar thing. It sounds very similar.
Is she a chiropractor?
She used to be a chiropractor. Yeah.
Yeah. He used to be a chiropractor as well. No, but that's once again, it's like the central nervous system, our nervous system is signals, and it is energy, like, and it's fascinating. And now it's like, when I experienced that, I didn't want to tell anyone because I was like, what the fuck just happened? But I've never felt more in tune with all of my emotions. And then my friend Jules, I think, introduced him to Gwyneth and then went on his show. And when I saw that on TV, I was like, wow, I can't believe they put that on TV, because he never let anyone film him either. And this was the first time that he publicly allowed to be filmed.
Wow.
And then put it on TV. And I just saw all the comments and things, like people going crazy. And I'm like, if you think that looks crazy, you should see what it really looks like, because that they toned it down for TV for sure.
Yeah.
And that was the most eye-opening experience of my life. And I think it made me think about energy too. Like when I think about like a pro athlete, right? If they're hitting the three and they're over and over, they know they're hitting the three, but so does the whole entire crowd. I'm like, okay, energetically, if everyone thinks you're gonna hit that three, are you gonna hit the three? Or when an artist blacks out on stage and it's the best performance of their life, they're freely floating.
Where are they going?
You know, like, I don't know. You know, I think it's like, it's letting your body get into that state where like the people around you, right? Like you have to understand it's not just you, but then it's also the people around you that believe in you, how that could lead to more and more. Like if you think, oh, I always get sick, and you tell everyone around you always get sick, and then everyone knows like, hey, you actually always do get sick. Is that the reason why you always get sick? Or, you know, like when you said it earlier on the rapid fire questions, like you can do anything you put your mind to. Like how long has that saying been around? And is it that literal, right? If someone can manipulate my energy without touching me and reconnecting the energetic fields in my body, why can't I think what my energy should do and it does it? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so fascinating and it's so weird. But then it just showed me that why would you doubt anything? You should always be open to trying it, and you should never judge anything. People judge things that they don't understand.
Definitely, yeah.
And that's not fair. I never want to judge anything or anyone because it just means I don't understand.
Well, maybe pushing through the judgment is part of getting access to these interesting modalities.
Yeah, because
it's part of the challenge.
Because you have to be open.
Yeah, it's like a test.
Yeah. Well, I think what's funny is the John, for example, I think he said, he's like, his wife exposed him to it, and his wife's healer was the one that he went to. In the first, I don't know if he said 3 or 4 or 5 times, he felt nothing. And then it started working after, I think it was 3 or 4 or 5 visits. Mm-hmm. And then he was so surprised that he wanted to learn it. And then he learned it, and then he started doing it. So he's like, anyone can learn how to do this, which is also interesting because we do control our energy. And if we can help control other people's energy, you can make shifts. So
I'm thinking of an idea here. I'm very curious about the whole EMF thing.
Yeah.
And hearing conversations like this makes me really wonder about whether it's actually a problem and we don't understand it yet.
Listen, I think there's 2 formats, right? Like in theory, EMF is bad, right? But then I think of something like extreme cold or extreme heat or extreme pressure or extreme resistance could be considered bad. So at first, like I have this whole theory that I kind of want to write my book on, is how a certain amount of stress is good. Like we know through science that moderate stress is great for performance and for memory. But I'm also looking at every single thing that we're doing in remedy and every form of self-care, and it actually is considered a stress. Extreme hot, extreme cold, an acupuncture needle puncturing the skin, an adjustment pushing through a joint, the pressure in a hyperbaric chamber, the compression in a lymphatic massage suit, a massage, a workout. All of these things are stressors that our body has to respond to, and you can overdo all of them. So there's a limit with how much you can stress, but if you keep stressing over and over again, you do become stronger and you can withstand more and more.
So but there is a point of overdoing it.
Always.
And this is where I think let's just play out the whole EMF thing as an like chronically exposed is where it becomes a problem. Maybe acutely exposed, fine.
Yeah.
But the challenge is it's a chronic level of exposure, 24/7, 365, phones on the ears.
But my question to you is, if you aren't able to control the environments, right? Like there's things that you can and can't do. But what can you do to be able to be more resilient, and why can some people withstand more EMF than others?
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. Do you have an answer to that?
No, and I think that is one, increasing how healthy you are, right? The healthier you are.
Hormetic stress.
Yeah. You're going to be able to be more resilient to anything.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is when people are sick.
Or telling themselves they're sick as well.
Yeah. Then everything gets worse.
Yeah.
And I see that as a common thread. When people feel sick and they know they're sick and everything goes wrong, they get sicker and sicker.
Yeah.
And they have more and more problems. And I'm not saying that they're not real, but also psychosomatic things are also real.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot in that.
There's a lot, but there's a lot that you can control. So it's like, all right, let's be aware of it and let's start focusing on what we can control instead of stressing what we can't.
Yeah, definitely. To round this out around the emotions, you being able to feel emotions again. Specifically, you see the energy healer to help like get realigned. Another good way to do it is just watch Marley and Me. And then
that helps. It helps.
If you don't cry watching Marley and Me, that's a red flag.
We need a little work, a little extra work.
Intervention. Yeah. It's funny. I will watch that movie with any girl that I'm dating just as like a check to see how much of a sociopath they are. And if they don't cry, that's a big red flag.
That's a big one.
That's a big red flag. So I'm conscious of time, but I want to get into something specific around your socially driven self-care 24-hour routine. So if you are looking at the ideal routine you can do from dawn to dusk that you're nailing, including working, family, friends, eating, what is it? Just start from the morning, go to the night, just rattle it off.
Yeah. The first thing that I do when I wake up is as I like swing my legs out of bed, I have a liter of water, but I drink, my rule is I can't get out of bed until I get through the first half liter.
Do you put electrolytes in it or anything?
No, not in that first one, but then I get up, cold shower. Then I would love to go for a run with a friend. You know, I think I have certain routines. Like I think making routines out of like one of my biggest things, resolution wise this year is to make a routine with another person for all the things that are important, like to invest in my friendship, create a routine with them. That could be like I have one of my buddies, we do Sunday morning runs in Central Park.
Nice.
And that's like also gives us time and routine that helps build our connection and we're doing something healthy. So I would kick that off and then I have to get into work. You know, like I work a lot and that is inevitable. It's just the stage that I'm in. So I get to have a lot of amazing meetings.
How many hours a day do you think you're working?
Probably at least around 14.
How do you do that effectively? How do you not just like fry yourself?
My workouts every day. My diet is locked in. I don't drink and do drugs. You know, it's very rare that I even have a drink.
There's only 2 hours left in the day of not working though.
No, but it is. But you have to remember that my job is my passion. And I feel like I have a once in a lifetime opportunity where every meeting that I have, I get to meet. It's like my practice, right? Like I could have so many patients today, but the energy that I'm getting from that and the opportunity, but I'm also looking that it's hard and doing something that's hard. All I want to get in this life is to figure out like, how do I keep growing personally and professionally? And I think I'm lucky that my job also is how I interact with more people. It's how I take care of myself. It's like I take meetings in our contrast suite. I take meetings in a sauna. I do meetings with an IV. Like, I think that's funny to a lot of people, but I love it. I multitask with that. Yeah. And I also replace like 2 to 3 nights a week instead of going out and getting dinner. I bring a friend or a group of friends to Remedy and I go in the contrast suite and we just go back and forth in the hot and cold. So I would say like, then I don't eat in the morning. I make sure to have about 4 liters of water throughout the whole entire day. I have
electrolytes in that.
I do Celtic sea salt.
Okay. Just Celtic sea salt.
Yeah.
What makes you just choose Celtic sea salt?
It's the most mineral dense. There's the most minerals in Celtic sea salt.
So does Celtic sea salt have the appropriate, isn't it 3 elements you need for hydration?
There's so many, but yes, Celtic sea salt has everything that you need. And then on top of that, I do another magnesium at nighttime just to make sure that my body relaxes. And just I think magnesium at night, especially when you're really active and you sweat a lot, you lose your magnesium through sweat.
What type of magnesium? Magnesium threonate or glycinate?
Glycinate.
And how many milligrams?
I rotate my dosage based on my blood work. So I mean, there's certain blood tests I do every 3 months and there's certain ones I do every 6 months, but my micronutrient I alter and then I manipulate based on that. But then I also give myself breaks. So I think it's important. I never want to be reliant on anything, even whether it's diet. Like I think it's okay to have an occasional splurge because I also want my body to be able to respond to that. Same thing. Like I think it's good to give your body a break in the gym or to completely change what you're doing for your workout. Not only like shift from Pilates to a boot camp or boot camp to yoga. Like you want to constantly change. And I think that also you never want to adapt and you have to keep changing that external stimulus. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then healthy lunch, healthy dinner.
What does that look like?
I don't eat anything in a box, can, or bag. I don't have snacks at home. It's usually just a healthy protein and a lot of vegetables and fruit. It's very simple, but it's also rotating, right? What's in season, what's not in season. But then also, if I ate just a healthy piece of animal protein and broccoli every day, I would create a lot of deficiencies. So always trying to rotate, I also go out to eat a lot. I don't cook at home because of how much I work, which creates some limitation. But if there's like, anytime there's a wild game on a menu, like that's the thing that I should try. Cause you just keep changing. And then like the end of the day contrast suite with a group of friends, that's really important to me. And then I go to bed at the same time. And
what
I wake
time?
Up around 10:30.
What time do you wake up?
6.
Okay.
So I wish I'm like
sleep.
I'm like a half an hour short, but like especially on the nights that I get my sauna and cold plunge in, my deep sleep and REM sleep are even better. So it's not even for me about how much time, because you can have 10 hours of sleep and then very little REM or deep sleep, and that's not as impactful.
Yep.
And then I do audits. Like I do a daily audit, a weekly audit, a monthly audit, and then a quarterly change. Just so like I have 10 questions that I like check off every single day at the end of the day, just
what
to
are those
see.
Questions?
It's everything from, healthy social interaction to things like I shouldn't be eating. Like, did I like check offs for like gluten or dairy, or did I have any alcohol? Did I get my movement in, what that movement was? Auditing my environments. So like, did those environments that I was in today enhance me, or did they hold me back? Did I get the right amount of steps in? They're simple and some of them are stupid, but
no, it's all right. None of it's stupid. It's interesting.
The human connection component and understand.
7.
Yeah. So was it?
That's 7 now. You've got a few more.
I have to look back. You have me stumped. It's everything from nutrition to, oh my God, there's like simple things for like my hair. I was bald, and like I make sure that there's a certain routine that I get in for that, a certain oral health routine that I have to get into, and my supplements of the day, making sure that I hit each one of those. So there's like flags, and then there's like subcategories like for nutrition or movement. But then at the end of the week, then I'll audit the week to see how many times was I off. And then for the month, doing the same thing. And then I'll also look at the people that impacted me and the common themes of who was the person that I wrote down that impacted me that day. What was that healthy interaction, or how many of those healthy interactions? And when they become themes, I start to realize, make sure to invest more time and energy to add value back into their life. So how am I helping them? And then you start seeing the impact, especially the human relationship. Obviously we talk about human connection, social self-care the most. So I really audit that. And it's like people are so important, and we're not investing in our friends and the people we love. And when you start realizing how many people help you or impact you on a regular basis, if you're not giving that back, you're going to lose a special connection.
Yeah.
And doing that I started that about almost 2 years ago. And at the end of the year, seeing who are the most monumental people in your life, and then looking about how they made you feel, or how they impacted you, or what you learned from them, you'd be like, oh wow, like I might have taken this for granted.
Yeah.
But by documenting that and the environments were the big one, because my self-care routines and nutrition, like those are standard practices for me.
Yeah.
But the environment and the relationship one was really big.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when you've only got yourself that you're thinking about, it's easy to get a routine, but it becomes a lot more complex when it's human dynamics and the social, like location dynamics. It's other things and other people that you have to really think about for it to click.
Well, that's why this year, part of my New Year's resolution was all those people that made profound impact in my life last year. How am I making a routine with them? Nice. Am I having a weekly ice bath with them? Am I doing a weekly sauna with them? Am I going for a weekly walk or coffee with them? Or is that the person I'm going to go on a run with? Or is that the person I want to go on vacation with? And it's interesting, because then it's actually strengthened those specific relationships so much, where I feel most men don't have close friends. I mean, like we said, everyone feels lonely, but I've never felt more supported and more loved in my life.
Yeah.
But I also had to put in the work to acknowledge, see, but then also make sure that I was giving that back.
I like that. I came across this TikTok a little while ago. It was basically this guy talking about this concept called Waffle Wednesday in his group chats. Have you heard about this? So basically he was like, we've got these group chats, like all the boys, blah, 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 blah. And he said this one thing once a week changed the whole relationship between that group, where once a week on a Wednesday, they go through, film a video of themselves, put it in the group chat of like 5 or 6 prompt questions. Like, what was a win today? What are you struggling? What was a win this week? What were you struggling with this week? How's your relationships? How's your health? And, you know, something interesting, whatever, like you get the gist. But basically every week, every one of those people in that group chat will just put this little video in of just like, this is how I am. And it doesn't take much to really build up a better relationship with those around you. Wow. So I started doing it. I mean, I think it didn't catch on with one group chat, but it's working with others. And
well, it's so funny that you say that, because through the pandemic, I started becoming friends with this group of guys, and every Wednesday morning we met for coffee at one of our houses. And we did the same thing. Nice. And they're all entrepreneurs and business owners, different industries, funny enough. But every time we said, what was the win of the week, the loss of the week, what we needed help with.
I like that.
And I felt like I established best friends, a therapist, a business coach. And I'm telling you, it was one of the most profound things that I did. And it united us. And now, you know, some of them are my best friends. But it's interesting because it was being vulnerable and opening up. I talked about things that group that I didn't tell anybody with. Also, it's hard when you start, you know, becoming a founder or CEO. Most people, like my parents or some of my other friends, will never get the things I have to deal with or the stressors that I have to figure out. But then also the relatability of people at the same stage of life, the guidance and the support. And that was like another cool way of like sharing the added value, because we were all there to be open and honest and non-judgmental, and also like help, and having 5 brilliant minds or smart people in the room to figure out, all right, you're the focus right now. How do we help you? I was like, what? And that was, and then once the world went back to normal, we stopped and we tried. Everyone lives all over the country. So it became harder and harder.
Maybe it's a group chat thing. Maybe you just put a video together on WhatsApp, and
that's what I was like, wow, like maybe that's the shift is, you know, like, even though I think the human connection part is very important,
it's better than nothing,
but it's better than nothing.
Yeah. I've done a number of interviews with some prominent people in the men's health space. There's a guy called Connor Baton. His Instagram's Man Talks, and he focuses on this stuff. And I went down this rabbit hole of guest referrals where I did 4, like I did this, I had an episode with him, and then he passed me on to his friend who also does like men's mental health. And then he passed me on to his friend who was a psychologist who does men's mental health. And then he passed me on to his other friend, and they're all this group. And one of the big things that they all said was, and what is missing in, you know, specifically men's mental health is when we go back to, you know, previous times in history, like, you know, maybe the early 1900s or whatever, there would be groups of men that would just spend time together, and they would work on like something difficult. Like they'd be on the dock and they'd be just like slugging their guts out, but they would do it together. And in that time they would bounce ideas off one another, and they would talk about challenges, and they would have this male group of community that has been lost, and I think has been ostracized a bit in modern culture, that in part leads to isolation of men, in parts leads to the inability for men to talk about their feelings. But it's not talking about your feelings. It's being challenged, like talking about an idea with an association of a challenge that's happening in your life, and then being challenged and pressed by other guys, not necessarily like talking to your girlfriend and like, it's not, that doesn't solve anything. Yeah. It's being challenged. It's being supported when you need to be supported, but also being like pushed back on when it's like you're full of shit. And that is a very unique dynamic that men and only masculine people can do together.
Yeah.
So I think you've touched on something that is very, very innate in the male human experience that I think you fell upon, that you didn't even realize. Yeah. That is core. So it's worth exploring. We in Australia, my friend and I, we started doing these dinners once a week, and it was tongue in cheek, but basically we started getting dinner once a week. We go to a nice steakhouse, and then we brought in a friend, And then we brought in another friend, and the requirement was that you had to be like a bit of a killer when it comes to business or entrepreneurship and slightly autistic. So we just, before I left, there was like, 6 of us, and we were catching up weekly, and we were just going through exactly the wins, the losses. And, one of the days we're sitting there and it's like, oh, what was your win for the week? And one of the guys was like, yeah, we did $1 million a month. It's like, fucking oath you did. Like, what are your challenges? Just like stuff. And it's very inspiring, and it's very supportive, and it gives you a better chance to like do better in the world. So I 100%. Think you're right on the money with that. It's worth exploring further.
Yeah, I love it.
So I want to wrap up and talk about a couple of just general philosophical stuff about you and your world. Happy to do that?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So what's the biggest thing over the last 2 years you've changed your mind on?
I would say I've had a really hard time talking out loud about certain things. As far as like, when I think about Remedy and about the dream and the vision, I think I've really always held back on saying what I thought I saw, because I was worried that the perception of it would be so outlandish that people would be like, "Who? That guy's crazy. Like, what is he talking about?" And then I started to really be like, I just said my whole life, my thing to live by is to be okay with being misunderstood. And I think there's different levels in life as you keep pursuing self-growth professionally and personally, that each boundary you're exposed to different things in life. And I think I reached a point where I wasn't staying true to those philosophies that I was living by, because the stages I was living those philosophies by, it was easier for me to adapt. Where now that the dream is so big, and I want to say that I want Remedy Place to reach more people than any company in the health and wellness industry. And I think that Remedy Place can create a global movement, and it can become one of the biggest brands in this soon to be $8 or $9 trillion industry. I just feel like we have a real shot. Like, we have a real brand that's built on purpose and expertise, and the real mission to help people and to change the narrative of how we're socializing. And it, like, now I feel comfortable saying, it's like, I know that sounds ambitious, but so is the opportunity. And I just feel like I found my life purpose. So that's been a hard thing for me to even say on this, because it's like, it's hard sometimes for me to express how I really feel, because I don't want to be looked at in a weird way.
So let's dig into this for one more second before we move forward. What is the most outlandish vision you have for Remedy Place and your interaction with it and your contribution to the world? Just say it out loud. Something that makes you really fucking uncomfortable.
Oh man. I think I've said it all. I think in the sense that, like, I think Remedy can be integrated into every person's life. And I don't mean that in a way that the club is one small, tiny vehicle. I don't want hundreds or thousands of clubs. I want 15 to 20 clubs. I'm not going to change the world with my clubs, but I think we can change the world with building trust and a reliable name with our brand, and then being able to use that brand through products, through a digital app component, through AI, to allow certain things to be mainstream. Because I think at the end of the day, I want Remedy Place to be the biggest platform that we can use to provide free education. Mm-hmm. And I think with advancements with the digital infrastructure and AI and our data set and the ever growing data that we hopefully will be able to encompass and show the effectiveness and efficiency, I think that we can become the biggest data pool of clinical evidence and market research for every single thing in alternative medicine and self-care and these modalities. And then being able to use that data to then provide the free education for the people that don't have access to any of it. Mm-hmm. But we can just teach them the foundations. It's way more important. Mm-hmm. You don't need to go to Remedy to be healthy. Mm-hmm. You go to Remedy for a luxury experience and have a good time. That's like your luxury entertainment that happens to take care of yourself. But I really think that if we can become that biggest platform, I think it also helps then motivate and inspire all the other businesses and other people in the space that, how do we help them with regulations, safety protocols, treatment protocols? Because I think it's still so new, right? And I think a lot of people are falling in love with health and wellness, and then they're starting businesses out of it. but it doesn't mean that they know the science, right? Or they're doing what they're reading, but that's why I have a hard time reading most things, because I don't want to be influenced sometimes by.
Go to the source.
Yeah.
Got it.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. So it sounds like the biggest challenge you're going to find if you let's just say, how many people do you want to touch? So you said everybody. So that's 7 billion people, like 1 billion. Is that
I don't know. I haven't manifested that number.
What's the number? Let's do it now.
Yeah. I mean, hundreds of millions of people. And I think I could see how that can happen, and not like later in life. I could see how that could happen in a decade, I
guess your challenge now is how to create community at scale, because none of this education's nothing without the drivers. As you said, the accountability, and the accountability of the wellness club is accountability. But how do you, if the wellness club, there's going to be 20 of them, then you're going to reach a scale issue very quickly.
Yeah. But remember, it's not about just the things we have in the club, right? It could be as simple as making sure people go on walks together.
Yeah.
It could be teaching people how to organize these groups that we're talking about, so they know how to structure the group, how to structure what the questions are, how to help each other. I'm not thinking about just education as ice baths and hyperbarics and IVs. I think it's teaching people how to build human connection again, build relationships again. And I think if we believe in, these studies, and, we also know that that is the key to longevity, more so than an ice bath or than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really enjoying the run club thing that's starting to come out. It's basically just dating.
How fucking cool.
It's great.
Is like overnight, within 2 years. But think of how nice it is. I wasn't even a runner, and I thought I used to hate running. Running up and down West Side Highway or Central Park, it is probably it's the highlights of my day.
Yeah.
You're around a bunch of people with the same mindset, taking care of themselves. It's a great thing. I've taken editors.
I think I to say edibles.
No, but I make it social. If I'm going to go for a run, why would I go for a run by myself? Sometimes it's good. I'll do one run a week by myself to maybe listen to a podcast, 'cause I'm trying to get some new things in there. But most of my runs, I perform better. I go further. It's easier, and I'm strengthening a connection.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that costs nothing.
Yeah.
And it made me better, and it made my connection better.
Yeah.
Simple.
The club of like-minded people. It's what's missing. And there's voids that are needing to be filled.
People are craving that.
Yeah. Nature hates a void, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a saying. I know there's a better word there, abhorrent or something. Anyway, moving on. Doesn't matter. So what's the kindest thing somebody's ever done for you?
Our first investor, remember, me talking about social wellness clubs and having no money and no leadership experience, no business experience. I was working on a patient that flew into LA who booked me out 3 or 4 months in advance. And she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna book you out for the week." And I was like, "Oh, you don't need to see me for every day for a week." She's like, no, clear your schedule. I was like, "No, you don't, I don't think you understand. I don't have that much to do with you." And she's like, "No, I just need to do it." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." And she told me, she was like, "Oh, I have back surgery planned. And I think it was a week, or I'm here to get back surgery." I actually forgot what it was. She's like, "But if you can fix me in 7 days, I'm going to cancel my surgery." And I was like, "Wait, you didn't want to tell me this beforehand?" And also you're giving me 7 days. And I worked with her for 7 days, got to know her, spent a lot of time with her, did a lot of education, changing mindset, a lot of therapies. And by the end of the week, she canceled her surgery, and she never had it, even to this day. And while getting to know her, she had big dreams and I had big dreams. And I was just talking about, I'm working on this business plan for Remedy Place. And she was telling me that she wanted to move to the States and she was going to go to NYU for this master's program. It was 2 big life moments. And she's like, "You just need to meet my husband." And I was like, "Okay." And she's like, "No, he needs to invest in your business." And I was like, "Oh," but at that time I didn't think anything of it, because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to invest." But then, I was always just waiting to see if they actually wanted to. And he called me the next day. He's like, can you meet me? Can we meet somewhere in the middle and have an in-person meeting? And I was like, oh, like, I guess I try to clear my schedule tomorrow. He's like, all right, well, meet me in New York. I forget what time it was. He's like, at Spring Place, and I want to just hear more about your story. And within 15 minutes of sitting down, he's like, how much would it be to buy 10% of this concept? And this guy didn't know me. I was with his wife for a week. I helped her. And because of that first check, that's why Remedy exists. But someone took a shot on me. And that family's like family to me. And I'm so grateful because even everything that has happened, not only for my growth and development, but also these movements that have been created in the industry, if that one person didn't give me a shot, this whole thing might have never existed.
I wonder if it would have existed eventually though, because you were unrelenting.
Fair. But as of my life, it happened because of that right now. But yeah, I'm sure, and I would hope that something else would have come along the way, or there would have been a reason why that didn't work out. So
what has that lesson and act of kindness done to impact the way that you then show up in the world?
Yeah, I think first, trusting the process, because when I had that 158-page business plan, if it was that easy to get that loan and I opened Remedy Place in 2015, it would have failed. And at first I was like, why is it that it's so hard to start a business? And like, you need money to start a business. And if you don't have money, you're at disadvantage. But that fueled me to work my ass off. And then eventually the money came, and then I entered the market at the perfect time, before its time, which then gave me a head start. And now when it's become the biggest movement in the health and wellness industry, I've been working on it since 2012, and we've been open since 2019.
It's a decade.
So I think really understanding just to trust the process. And if something doesn't work out, there's a reason. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Maybe that is because it fuels you to do something different or pushes you. I don't know. So now when I have like anything that is feeling like a lot of resistance, instead of questioning it, I try to learn from it. And I look back now, and when I do those reflections every year in my journal, I talk about the hardest things that happened that year. Now I look back and I'm like, oh, thank God that happened. And I think like even in my life, I had a really hard time coming out. And
how old were you?
25.
Oh, so quite old.
Yeah. But there was a really low point within that phase. And I look back and I'm like, the thing that I would have wished, the amount of pain and suffering that I would never wish on anyone is actually the thing that I'm most grateful for in life, because it taught me how to love myself, and it actually pushed me to such a point where I had no other option other than to figure out who I was, not as a product of my environment. And I think that's what gave me so much completeness, because not many people are pushed to such an extreme to figure out who they are, because we also are a product of our environment.
Yeah.
So it's a cool thing in that annual practice, right? It's not just about all these amazing things. It's about talking about all the hardest things.
Yeah. You're evolved. The more challenges you get through, the more you evolve.
Yeah.
It goes back to stress.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, I think it was Time Magazine, stress is the number one killer. And I'm looking back now, I'm like, I don't actually think stress is the number one killer.
Maybe it's more to do with your relationship to said stress.
Yeah. And the level of stress.
Yeah.
But if you just blame
intensity, and the frequency of it.
Yeah. And your mindset around it. Because if you're just blaming stress,
it's out of your control.
If you're looking at everything that is stressful in life as a bad thing, you're just building these circuits that everything's bad.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, aging is enduring stress.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, life is stressful.
Yeah.
And everything that we do is a stress.
100%. So if you could only recommend one book for somebody to read over and over again for the rest of their life, what would it be?
Oh man, you're putting me on a spot. Like, honestly, I'm in a time and a place in my life since I've I've only read one book since I finished school.
What was it?
Ray Dalio's Principles book.
Great. That's a fucking great book.
And
that's not a bad answer in itself.
And I love that book. And it was really interesting and it was powerful. But during the pandemic, there was only one short phase that I actually could sit with myself. Even in that time where the world shut down, I was in panic mode trying to figure out how to keep my business alive. So it's something that I used to be scared to say, that I don't really read books, but now it's my truth. And it's something that I haven't been able to prioritize, but also when I do have free time, like I like to like sketch out designs and work on future innovations. Like instead of looking outwardly, I like to look more inwardly, if that makes sense.
Maybe you're very aligned with the downloads of the world, of the universe, and it's you're getting all the answers you need for now.
I try. I'm trying to understand that.
It's good. Yeah, I mean, from my experience, I was never a big reader. I started listening to podcasts. Podcasts led me into book recommendations, and then I started listening to audiobooks. And my whole life changed the moment I could listen to an audiobook.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like I was 23, 24, and I realized they existed. And then my views on the world have completely shifted. So I'm a huge proponent of reading. I don't read a ton, but I try to. And the commonality between a lot of really successful people across human history is a vast majority of them are voracious readers.
Yeah.
Whatever they read, it doesn't have to necessarily be books. It could be anything, but they read.
Yeah.
So, it seems like you've just found your thing that you read.
Yeah. And I think too, is just like, I'm not a very well-rounded person. If you ask me about anything health and wellness and maybe design and now human connection, like that is what I'm drawn to. If you ask me about financials or, politics, like there's a lot of things that I don't really know a lot about.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a downfall to not be well-rounded.
Yeah.
But I just need more time.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not. Maybe being unbelievably good at 2 or 3 things is enough.
Yeah. I think trying to be good at one thing is amazing, right? Yeah. Like dispersing your energy by putting all your energy into one thing, it's gonna be a lot more powerful. The more that you have to dissect your energy, there's only so much that you have to give.
Yeah. Nice. It's been a good episode. Wrapping up, what's one lesson that you would like from anybody listening to this to take away from the conversation?
Really that you're in control, look at everything in life and figure out what you have control over, your reaction, your health, your mindset. And once you take control over what you have control over, you realize that you control everything in life.
Nice. And is there anything you're excited about at the moment you'd like to let anybody listening in on?
I'm just most excited for more and more people to have opportunities like this to sit and educate. Like I was saying before, like how social media, I think, made a major impact. I hope that someone listening to this feels like they learned something that then changed. Like our head of people, she's like, I was interviewing a couple people for Boston and they're like, they heard you on one podcast and how you changed their life and they heard stress wasn't bad and then they ran a marathon. And I'm starting to realize that how powerful words can be, and whether it's one person that it impacts or hundreds or thousands, I'm hoping that people learn and hoping that it makes an impact. And I think anyone that has the opportunity to be on your podcast, like words are powerful.
What dispels?
Yeah. And if you can use those to not only take care of yourself, but then help others and pay it forward, I'm hoping that helps more and more people.
Yeah, definitely. And where can people find you if they want to learn more about you?
I'd probably say social media on Instagram. It's so funny because I'm repped by WME and they're like, John, you have to be more on social and you have to do these things. And I'm like, guys, like I really don't have time, but they're like, you have to. And I think I'm trying this year to be able to put more education and add value, right? You know, like it's not just about me building Remedy. Like I hope that helps inspire other people. And like that's most of my socials about Remedy and my work, but that is the majority of my life. But I think I want to find more ways to add value based on the things that we're talking about, the things that I'm learning about human connection and building relationships and healthy habits. And I do want to find that as a way to share on social media. So there's also a reason to want to follow. Like, don't just follow people because of their life and what they're doing. Maybe that is motivating, inspiring, but I think social media can be used for so much good, and I need to do a better job at using that as a way to help.
It's a leverage multiplier.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you figured it out. we can check back in a year and see what you've done. And wrapping it up, what is the meaning of life?
Connection.
Nice. Dr. Leary, thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy.
Thanks
Appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. And anyone listening who's made it this far, please search on YouTube That One Time with Adam Metwally. Click subscribe, like the video, and leave us a comment. Until next time. Alrighty.